Good morning and welcome to another edition of Go-to-Market Friday. My co-host Meg and I have been doing this for 3.5 years plus. Meg, who formerly ran Serious Decisions Research and a former practitioner as a CMO, and now in a consultancy role, and myself as an agency owner. We have different guests each week, and this week we welcome a special guest from Dubai. We caught him in between Dubai and India, as well as New York City. He travels quite a bit, so really grateful to have Alex, and we're going to give a proper introduction in a moment. He's the CEO of Salesbox.ai and founder. And as we do in every episode, as people are filing in here, we've done so many of these episodes, probably close to 400 episodes now. If you have a specific question, Meg or I are certainly happy to address. This session is as much ours as it is yours. In the lower corner or in your LinkedIn, you have the ability to ask us questions real time, or you can pop over a question via LinkedIn to us independent of this, and we'd be happy to point you in the right direction. Of course, we're going to suggest, if you get value here, like and subscribe, share with a friend. We grow when you grow. So would be grateful if you could share that. And with that, Meg, do you want to give Alex a proper introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, folks, for joining us. And Alex, we are delighted that you're here and excited for you to share some of your perspective on the market and in particular AI for demand gen. For folks who don't know Alex founded Salesbox back in 2014. He's the founder and CEO there, which is an AI platform that is focused on helping sales and marketing teams with demand gen, in particular accelerating pipeline. And his background is in AI orchestration and demand. And really now he's applying those skills to look at how to move beyond the ways that we think about traditional demand gen, traditional funnel views of the world, to make sure that we can take advantage of all of the technology that's come to be ready for prime time in the last few years. And before he was at Salesbox, Alex led product and audience development at a company called True Influence. For those who know it, super interesting platform that was acquired by Interiad. And I think, Alex, we're excited to have you bring your perspective of some of the work that happened at True Influence around intent and scaling those kind of really personal views of your buyers along with AI today. So Alex, thank you very much for joining us and welcome.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks for the intro. Good morning and pleasure to be here. Hi, John.
All right. Well, I think we promised people the basics and not so basics of AI for demand gen, and you are the perfect person to help us with that. I would love it if you could share a little bit about kind of the role of AI in go-to-market. What have you seen develop over the last few years?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, right? I mean, so going back 20 years, I would say it started with rule-based automation systems. In fact, I was, one of the first products I worked upon predates Eloqua. It was called Market First. So those were rule-based automation systems, and then we had systems that could do sentiment analysis. We had systems that could do predictive scoring based on historical data. And as things evolved, we had generative AI, which came in, about 3 to 4 years before, about 3 years back, which allowed marketers to create content that could be used. But then, now you have what we call as AI native demand gen platforms. So yeah, so all the way from rule-based automation, I would say there's been about 5 different eras in the space so far.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you tracing that line too, kind of from the things that we know and many people still have in place kind of to where we are now. But John, it looked like you were going to come in with a question. I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about, you're an OG here of marketing automation. So you've seen kind of the transition that's happening even in today's market of people being frustrated with marketing automation. It was really designed for something 15 years ago. And so your timing for Salesbox is really good. Maybe we could just start off with a definition of what is AI native demand generation versus like traditional demand generation. Because now that you got AI in the mix, what's changing there?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a modern go-to-market strategy that uses AI at the core. The core engine is AI based, and it helps you identify, engage, and convert in-market buyers. So that's the one-liner of it. But we'll talk more about it specifically. There's like three very specific what shall I say, characteristics of such systems. It's signal based. It's able to take autonomous decisions. Are some of the very couple of features of it. So it's agent centric and helps you drive pipeline and revenue growth.
Sorry about that. So thinking about that, how is that specifically different than the way that we would have thought about a traditional marketing automation platform or traditional demand gen? What is the AI native piece as opposed to the traditional piece?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the traditional systems were very lead centric. You had, it was everything was based on a lead, whereas here, it's more holistic. It's more revenue centric. So so if the primary goal was to collect leads in the traditional system, here it is to create qualified pipeline. Secondly, in terms of targeting itself, the first one is very criteria based, whereas here it's more nuanced. It is in market accounts and buying groups specific. So targeting is slightly different. The data inputs, the traditional system works on firmographics based, whereas here you have intent signals from multiple sources, which is used. The engagement piece also in the traditional is very manual. So you have campaigns that set up and runs, whereas here you have autonomous AI agents. So yeah, and lastly, the scale, right? There is the traditional system. You're limited by the bandwidth of the marketing automation expert, whereas here you have agents that makes it more elastic and scalable.
You shared a lot of different inefficiencies there of the pipeline in today's environment, and just thinking about those inefficiencies, do you see a situation of AI replacing all those inefficiencies? Like hey, you're swapping out that headache, but you're now getting all these efficiencies in the pipeline. Like, where do you see the spectrum of kind of the inefficiencies to AI?
So if your question is, how does AI make things more efficient, right? I think that if I heard you, that
Yes.
was the question, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so there is a lot of waste. There is a time, or the time it takes to set up a campaign, for example. That's a saving, because with a native AI system, you have an always on program, so you don't have to, the time it takes to set up a sequence or the messages could be cut off here. The time it takes to hand off that lead to an SDR, probably there is, in a traditional system, it takes, you measure that in days, whereas here it's in minutes. Again, how soon could you act on a signal is very different here as well. So yeah, so you get a lot of efficiencies in being able to act instantly on a signal.
Well, and I think a lot of that comes down to the role of agents, AI agents in the demand process. I'd love for you, given your expertise, kind of walk us through how that works. What is that AI agent or series of agents doing through the demand process?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would say that you could break it down to 5 different agents. The first one is called as an account discovery agent. And the role of this agent is to find accounts that match the ICP, find buying group members. So I would say that's more of a data role. It helps you in targeting the right accounts. And then you have a qualification agent, which is looking at signals. It is trying to see, it's trying to prioritize in-market accounts. So the job of this agent is to help us focus on the right set of accounts. And this, combined with the discovery agent that I mentioned earlier, kind of allows us to focus on the right buying group members and make sure that the third agent, which is the engagement agent, is having personalized conversations with the right message to the right set of buying group members. And then, that's how engagement happens, which brings us to the fourth agent, which is an SDR agent, which is trying to book meetings on accounts that's been prioritized. And you also have a RevOps agent whose job it is to update the CRM and pass that on to sales. So broadly, these are the 5 agents in a native AI demand gen program that I would recommend, which allows you to drive pipeline and revenue growth.
Well, that's very fascinating, and thinking about AI, it kind of leapfrogs all the other investments of people and technology with those 5 different agents, and you can automate that. That's fantastic. Maybe just double clicking into the first 2 agents. I think you said it was a qualification agent, and there was an account discovery agent. Tell us a little bit about how they identify the buyers group there, or what are common issues that you see if you don't have those 2 types of agents, like right out of the jump. Why are those so important to kind of get right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all about, the number one I would say is, intent, first party intent. And the qualifying agent, for example, is listening on your website to identify who is coming. So, and is that visitor an in-market account? Is that visitor part of the buying group? So, yeah, so that is crucial in terms of a timing and relevance perspective, and getting in front of the right, which ensures that, we are having the right conversation at the right time with the right account. So yeah, that's the qualifying agent. And when it comes to the first agent that I mentioned, the discovery agent, as you're aware, for any AI initiative, it's essential that the data is right. And this is what is the focus of this agent. So these 2, I would say, are the building blocks. One is you got to get the timing right. You have to get the input right, which is the data.
And I'd love to pause on the data for a second. One of the things that I hear companies worry about a lot is my data is not perfect, so therefore I can't do whatever it is I want to do. But the flip side of that is your data will probably never be perfect.
Sure.
What are some of the things for the companies you've worked with that have been successful deploying these agents? What kinds of things would you advise them to do to make sure that their data is ready?
So yeah, I mean, one is to weed out the the people who have left the company. The second is, there is job titles which need updation, the job functions, etc. So you probably would need to look at the CRM or marketing automation system. And step 1 is to get the data right. And there are different ways, there are vendors that help you enrich the information you have, and and cleanse the data you have as well. And there are vendors who have go-to-market agents who do such tasks as well, like the one I mentioned.
And you mentioned also the engagement agent, which to me sounds like a possible replacement for marketing automation or an ABM platform. Maybe share, what is that engagement agent? Like, if you double click into that, what is it capable of doing, or where are you seeing some challenges of companies that are trying to adopt the engagement agent, moving away from maybe traditional ways of doing demand gen?
Yeah. So when it comes to the engagement agent, it's about, what are the channels on which it can engage? Is it omni-channel? There are traditional systems, which is, a single channel, probably just email. So you want to make sure, first of all, that it can be conversational. It has the ability to kind of have 2-way conversations, and score and prioritize those engagements or conversations as well. So even before going to kind of replace things, probably there is a lot of gaps as well, where probably it's just the engagement today that's being attempted is just driving people to landing pages. And there is probably what is added as another element is two-way conversations over email or over chat. So it could be an add-on. Having said that, it is possible to have a unified agent for engagement. Technically possible to have the same agent do both email and chat and all engagement for using the same agent.
And I'd love to follow up on that, because I think the promise of that is amazing, especially when it comes to kind of programmatic account-based work, where you're trying to reach a good number of customers, but you also don't want to make it just the same old demand gen with the kind of limited personalization. What are some of the inputs that companies need to prepare? I mean, this is the part that people have to do. Sort of what do they need to do to be ready to have productive and distinctive engagement, would you say?
So yeah, I mean, there's lots that could be done on the personalization front. So just because of the bandwidth limitations, we probably are not personalizing, or data limitations. We don't have the ability to personalize it. In the AI native AI world, this is called as context. So we are able to give richer context about each lead to the agent, so that conversation could be personalized. So be it with the intro line, or it could be about recent articles published. So there is a lot more context that it could utilize to craft that message. So yeah, it's about the basics of being, how can you make that more relevant, that engagement.
So when you say relevant and personalizing, the AI is pulling content from like the Uber AI to personalize an outreach, or how is that working in terms of that engagement?
So there is publicly available information and signals about, because in today's world, people are putting information out. So there could be a recent article which was published, or a blog post. So how could you cross-reference that wherever it's relevant? Or it could be about their background, which is used in that outreach message. So, and there is also news about the company. For example, they probably published a recent news, a press release. So how do you incorporate an element of that into the pitch? So yeah, so earlier we couldn't do that at the scale. Probably we could only do that at 1:1 ABM, but yeah, now you could do that 1-to-many.
Yeah, well, and I would imagine that this capability certainly would have an impact not just on marketing, but on sales as well, given that they're usually the ones in the position to be creating that context, identifying that context, and then using it in real-time conversations. Now we're saying we've got agents that can help us with this, which is a great help. What would you say is the biggest benefit to a CRO, to a CSO, to a sales team in terms of the role of these agents and the role of native AI demand?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all about more pipeline, faster conversion, and less revenue leakage. So specifically, if you look at the reps' time, they don't have to spend time on low quality leads. It kind of streamlines, and it gives them only the right leads, right? Because it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. The slow follow-ups, which potentially could happen at the SDR end, could be eliminated as well, because you have an always-on agent, which is able to do that initial outreach pretty much instantly. So yeah, that helps. There's also a challenge a lot of times for sales, that it's a single-threaded deal, right? Which means there's only one individual that they're talking to. Whereas here you have the discovery agent that's built the entire buying group. So you could have like a multiplexed, or you have like 3 or 4 additional buying group members that you're having a conversation with. So the probability of that deal getting stuck or ghosted is lesser, right? So yeah, so that way it kind of helps. And of course, on the data side, sales always has a data issue problem, which could be solved by agents making sure that the information is enriched and staying up to date.
That's interesting. And thinking about your 5 different agent approach here, in feedback that I've heard on the outside, not specific to your product, but there's some level of skepticism with CMOs right now around SDR AIs, and rightfully so. I think, like anything, we've all been in technology for a while. There's a maturation here, and we're in early innings, and the early innings are producing questionable email outreach. How would you suggest getting up that maturity curve quicker, or getting more value out of an SDR AI, either yours or otherwise? Like, where are people missing the mark on the SDR AI side of things?
Right. I mean, it's a great question, right? And I think it has to do with a lot of times we bring the SDR AI much earlier than we should be. So there needs to be, I mentioned the engagement agent that marketing is working on. And, there is this scoring and prioritization which needs to happen. So the SDR AI needs to be speaking to those who have crossed a certain threshold score. In terms of the account, right? So they, when they are more sales ready, let's put it that way, right? So when it's not relevant, or when the timing is not right, it has quite the opposite effect, like you rightly mentioned.
Well, and one of the conversations I know I've seen a lot on LinkedIn over the last couple of weeks, especially as we're starting to close out budget season, and people are being pushed. There's a lot of data from Forrester and others kind of saying that budgets are going to be smaller for marketing going into 2026. And if you are in a sales or marketing leadership role and you want to make sure that you are setting the right expectations around the impact of AI, especially just saying kind of in the near term too, sort of, we know it'll be huge in the long term, but what is it now? What would you say? What would you feel comfortable encouraging a CMO or a head of sales to promote to their board or their CEO in terms of budget change expectations around the impact of AI?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it needs to be traditionally, it was like a lead, the sales and marketing alignment was a little off as well, I would say. So, marketing used to talk in the language of leads, and, sales is talking more on revenue, but that's evolved, and, and Forrester's done an amazing, work on that front, Meg, and you're aware of it. And the native AI demand gen motion is also very revenue centric. So the conversation is more about how AI can help with revenue acceleration. How can it give cost efficiency? Because there is like a lot of systems in the MarTech stack, which is probably legacy, and it is like remnants from yesteryears, which could be consolidated. Which is just existing there, right? So the conversation more is about, hey, these are the benefits. There's predictable and measurable ROI from this, and it also gives you that what I would call that strategic agility, because you can experiment. You have that flexibility as well with something like this if you wanted to test out a market, things like that. So.
Yeah, just thinking about today's crazy market and building off what Meg said about Gartner and kind of the lowering of budgets. Another one of our guests, Ray Reich, I was listening to one of his presentations yesterday, and another one from EBSTA on kind of the state of revenue in, I would say, probably smaller SaaS companies, where they're really challenged right now with growth that's just not happening. To net it out, the bottom line is just not growing as quickly as people would like. And to Meg's point, I think you're going to see a lot of compression on the headcount for 2026. People are going to be lucky if they hire, I think, in marketing. They may even be lucky if they do replacement hiring for people that churn. So if you pretended for a moment, hey, I'm the CMO, I'm not getting any more headcount, but boy, what you're sharing here sounds really, really great. How do I make the case internally to adopt any of these agents or AI overall? Like, where should I be thinking about in my existing budget to potentially, question, trim, cut back? Because right now we've cut back so much. Like, where do I go as a CMO to say, okay, I'm going to take a gamble, I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to replace it with this, and this?
Right. No, I mean, it's a great question, and it's the interesting thing is in each company it is very different, right? Because it depends on the contract cycle. It depends on their level of authority to do that as well, right? So it is there's no one size fits all answer, I would say, for it. But in terms of where to start, I would say with data initiatives, you have to get so I would say, how would you get an AI agent to cleanse the data that you have? And then, how do you make sure that you're getting the timing right? Could you possibly, add an agent that's listening on your website to create intent leads for you, to decipher, who's visiting and ID that. So those are instant things that could be added to, what you already have. And then, of course, comes, the engagement piece. So, so to answer your question, I would say, you would want to look at, that MarTech stack, what is not being used at all, in terms of, maybe there is a system that's, maybe it's a marketing automation system. We also have cases where there's like multiple within an organization as well. So, so it would be about making sure that, start with the right use case. And I would say that's data.
Yeah, that's always a great one. And it's something nobody likes to do manually. So it's probably the first place to get a win, at least an emotional win, I would say. Question to close things out, given your technical and market perspective, your 5 agents are going to be able to handle 80% of what demand gen is from an execution perspective. What do you see in terms of marketing teams making that shift from having to do the execution themselves to having agents helping? What does it open up for them to be able to do from a strategy or other kinds of execution perspective?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're probably not at 80% yet. We're probably more, the 60 to 70%. But I would say the old role involved a lot of activities like building campaigns, writing emails, managing nurture flows, analyzing the clicks, etc. So the new role is probably going to be more, to define the ideal customer profile, set strategic goals for pipeline and revenue contribution, make sure there is alignment on messaging, make sure that the system is optimized. So I would say it's more marketing becomes the brains than today's maybe mostly the hands, not just the hands, right? So it's more around that. So if you look at the traditional job title itself, rather than a campaign manager, we're probably looking at a GTM orchestrator, for example. Or, rather than a content marketer, it's going to be a content strategist and activator, right? A marketing ops role is going to be more an AI operations and data strategist type of role, which allows them to manage these systems and get more done.
Well, that's good news if I ever heard it. Getting out of the execution role and into the more strategic and creative role, I think, is something we all appreciate and look forward to as we inch ever closer to that 80% number. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today, especially given that it's late in your day. We certainly appreciate it. John, any last comments before we say goodbye to our friends and wish everyone a great Friday?
No, this was great. Really grateful, Alex, that you shared your wisdom here on the 5 different agents and really making me think a lot about a couple different situations, which offline I may want to grab a minute or two if you have extra here. But no, thank you for joining us. And next week we've got from G2, their head of demand generation, will be speaking about some of his LinkedIn campaigns that he's been sharing. And G2's been doing a ton with AI recently. So this will be a great conversation to build off of what we heard today, and also hearing what G2 shares next week. So I hope everybody can join us then.
All right. And with that, thanks, everybody. We wish you a very happy Friday. See you next time.
Sounds good. Yep. It was a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.